it's quite a weekend in Omaha. And when early in the week, they got beat, was it 15-1?
15-2, Sean.
15-2 against Ohio State. It didn't have a great feel. I mean,
no.
And you think about just how close this Nebraska baseball team is to being a host level team. They have adequate Friday, Saturday pitching, as you heard Grant Hansen just say, and McConaughey and Brett Sears. But they've had inconsistencies in that number 3 in the midweek spots, and that's why they're a 2 seed. I mean, but you saw what this team can be when it's all clicking, and we saw that in Omaha in front of some great crowds at Charles Schwab Field.
Yeah, I was saying in the previous segment, they're dangerous. I sort of blushingly admit this. I sat down and watched them closely for the first time this week. They're pretty good. They're better than adequate, those first 2 pitching slots. You had the Big Ten pitcher of the year, Brett Sears, and McConaughey is not far off. And now when you got Jackson Brockett going like that, like he did on Saturday, and Will Walsh, who's basically
Andrew Christo.
Yeah, those guys. Well, yeah, Brockett. I'd say Brockett and Walsh are sort of even, but Brockett looks so good on Sunday, and he's your 3 guy. Now, keep in mind, none of this is a huge surprise because this is the best pitching. This was the best pitching staff in the Big Ten. They have the best pitching staff in the Big Ten. They have a catcher who's red hot in Karen, who hit 6 home runs again. Who get 6 home runs in Omaha? 6 home runs in Omaha, 5 games. He is. He's really dangerous right now. The lineup's good. They're you got to watch this team now.
Well, in that ballpark, it's geared for pitchers in Omaha, the way the wind blows. Because
no doubt. No doubt.
Whoever designed it, they messed up when they did it. I mean, they have it where if it's a southern wind, it's blowing in. Mm-hmm. And when in the June and July baseball days and when it's hot, what way does the wind blow? Southern. So when it's a hot day, the wind blows in at that ballpark.
Oh, it takes a lot to get it out.
And they played to that ballpark. They had a lot of doubles. They set a record for most doubles in a Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, they had how many doubles?
17.
17 doubles.
I knew you were going to get me on that.
Yeah, it was in your rundown.
And they set a record with, I believe it was 56 or 58 strikeouts.
56
strikeouts.
Yeah.
And so they pitched well, which you got to do in that ballpark. Mm-hmm. And they hit a lot of doubles because home runs are hard. But the other thing is they hit home runs.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do at Schwab Field.
No, and you alluded to it, it's not easy to come back from an opening game loss like that. Although the one thing that I've learned over the years is one loss is one loss. That's it. I mean, I think people kind of sometimes their knee-jerk reaction is, 15-2, it's got to be crushing. No, it's not always that crushing. It's just one loss. That's what it was. But they did have to battle back. Now their backs were against the wall. They handled it well. And it reminds me of something that Will Bolt said. This was a quote. I remember it. Hell, I remember where I was. I was eating at a Perkins out on the interstate. And I remember reading this.
Right on brand.
He said, or one of his players said, we want to be the toughest team in America. And I thought, wow, that's a really lofty goal. And what does that even mean? Well, you know what it means? It means largely it's mental and it's the ability to bounce back. And what they did in Omaha was show extreme toughness, like the toughness of maybe one of the toughest teams in America. They are a tough team. They're going to be hard to bounce out of any tournament. They're going to be tough to bounce out.
You know who else is a resilient and tough bunch?
Who?
Nebraska fans.
Yeah.
And the way that they continue to show up and support this program, we're talking about a state of less than 2 million people that continues to have a Power 5 or Power 4 or Power 2, whatever you want to call it now, team that's relevant.
Yeah.
And the reason why is the fans, the support. You saw 13,300 fans at a 10 a.m. game.
10 a.m.
And we left from Lincoln. And I mean,
what time?
We had to get up at like 6:30 or 7. We left the house at 8.
Yeah, I was amazed when I called you and you were in the stands.
It was, I mean,
I was just getting my day going.
Getting from Lincoln down to downtown Omaha for a 10 a.m. start. I mean,
not easy.
So for 13,300 people to do that on a Sunday,
pretty amazing.
That was not easy to do. And the game was supposed to be at 2 because Then they moved it earlier because they thought there was a threat of what. There was no weather issues at all Sunday. It was kind of bizarre.
No, and it wasn't a lot of notice they gave the fans, right? Was it 12 hours notice?
I mean, and Ticketmaster like didn't even release more seats until like 8 or 9 o'clock. It was kind of hard to even get tickets, and they opened them up and had more. But it was a great turnout, and at the ballpark, for the amount of people there that early, I thought they were staffed adequately. They did. I mean, concession lines were manageable.
You were there. What was it like when Gabe Swanson hit that ball to the wall in the ninth?
Electric.
Was that the ninth or
the home
8th?
Run and the double were. It was a weird game because it was basically a 2-hour game. It just
quick.
It flew
Pitchers
through.
duel, 2-1 pitchers duel,
and there were it was warmer in the ballpark than you would have thought for being a 70-degree morning. There was no wind, and that sun was just. Remember, how we sit in the press box for an 11 a.m. football game, and that sun just beams on you. That's what it was like in the ballpark. So it was
warm.
It was warm. I mean, my girls were getting hot sitting there at the game. But I met a lot of great Husker fans at the game, and it was just awesome to see Nebraska. I thought about this. I'm like, God, when's the last time I've sat and watched Nebraska capture a championship? I mean, now volleyball is now obviously, but at the men's level, where you've seen them come into a stadium in Nebraska and win a championship.
Yeah, well, you were there. Good. Where were you sitting?
We were down the third base line in the ninth row.
Good seats.
Yeah, there was $16 a ticket.
You're right. The game was quick. It was. I looked up. I was listening to parts of it on the radio. I looked at my truck radio. I think it was 12. It was 12:10. Just after noon. I was like, man, the game's
back
over
in
at noon.
We were back in Lincoln before 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, it was I just give Will a lot of credit. And this is a boost for his program. And I said going in, I think I said on my radio show, surprise me, win the Big Ten. Nebraska hasn't won a league tournament title since 2005. Okay. That's 20 years, Sean. That's 20 full years. They have not won a league. I know you're doing it in your head, but I can just tell you unequivocally, they have not won a league tournament title since 2005. Okay. That was Jabba. That was Alex Gordon. That was Zach Kroenke. That was Brian Dunsing. That was Johnny Dorn.
And then the next year they lost in the league finals to like Kansas. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. Remember.
I was down there.
I was down there too. Yeah, I was down there for all those tournaments. It was remarkable.
Memorial Day weekend in Oklahoma City.
Yeah,
those were wonderful times.
Oh, they were wonderful. So this was beautiful for Will. I give Will a lot of credit. I was very big on Will's hire. I pushed it hard for Nebraska to hire Will, and he's been a little underwhelming. Let's face it, the program's been a little underwhelming, a little, not bad.
He shook his staff up, though.
Yeah, he shook his staff, and Rob Childress, like you covered in the first segment, did a remarkable job with the pitching staff, the best pitching staff in the Big Ten. They don't, God, I'll just tell you something that old man appreciates, Sean. They don't walk anybody. They average fewer than 3 walks a game, which was best in the Big Ten. You know how much I appreciate that? You know what I hate going to baseball games and watching? Walks. When they load them up with a bunch of walks. Oh, God. It kills the fielders. I mean, the fielders are out there going, come on, man, throw strikes. Deadens everybody. This team doesn't throw. They don't walk people. They're dangerous. They'll be dangerous in Stillwater.
Early in that game, too, you can just see the control that Childress has on a game. Like,
he calls it great.
At the very beginning, Brockett wasn't hitting his spots early. Mm-hmm. And he went out there and talked to him.
Yeah.
Settled him down or whatever he said.
Good point.
Him. And at that point, you're like, God, are they pulling him already? Because it was rough at the start of the game.
Rob will get after a guy. He'll challenge him. He'll challenge his manhood. That's what he does. Now, the other thing that Rob does is calls the game. And there's if you talk to any coach, they'll tell you hardly anybody calls a game as well as Rob does.
And in the college game, it's common for the coach to call the game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, in the pros,
I don't know how they do in the pros.
The catcher calls the game.
Yeah, Rob calls the game. Rob calls this game.
Yeah, and there's only, that's the normal. So he's an elite pitching mind.
Yes, he is. Yeah, and they're best pitching staff in the Big Ten. And now they got those guys going. Sears, McConaughey, Brockett, Walsh.
Don't underestimate Chris out of the bullpen.
I got you.
He's a major league arm talent that just has never put it together, and he's putting it together now.
Yeah.
He pitched wonderful in Omaha.
Yeah, I guarantee it. There's gonna be some excitement in Stillwater. Guarantee it.
2 o'clock. 2 o'clock on
First Florida
Friday.
First Florida.
Yes. Come on now.